built one of the world's first and largest online language schools with real teachers, not just video lessons. And he's launched over 20 businesses without a dollar of outside funding. It's Ray Blakney, and he's the founder of LiveLingua, and he's the creator of the Productized Education model. We're here on the Marketer of the Day podcast with Robert Plank. We're brought to you by dfypodcast.com, where your content becomes a lead generating machine. But we're here to talk about more than just content. We're here to talk about systems, learning, teaching, changing some lives, and doing all that with the AI axe hanging over our heads and saying that so much is free now that used to cost money. So much is plagiarized. So much will be free. So how does that fit in with what I'm trying to do, building a business, making money, helping people out, solving problems? Mr. Ray is here to help us out, calm us down, and also at the same time get us excited about what's to come. So, Mr. Ray, glad to see you, glad to be speaking with you.
Robert, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. And I'm always like worried about being too complacent, resting on our laurels. But then there's also like, you don't want to jump around too much stuff, but we live multiple lives, don't we? We go to college for this, we have a first career for that. And like, I think you and I were geeking out a lot before we hit record, because like we have this kind of overlap of like, we're both computer geeks, right? Computer programmers. And then something I kind of held back from telling you is like, so I was doing software and computer programming, and that led into membership sites, online courses. And I'm really out of shape, out of practice, rusty from that. Like about 10 years ago, I gave up the online courses because there was a kind of a golden age there where everyone was boring and they were teaching like tutorials click by click. And I was like, hey, have a package, have a whole like curriculum is also boring, but have like a kind of a revolutionary like blend of coaching and teaching. And it's been 10 years. I'm so out of it. And so my own selfish personal goal is to get re-excited about the possibilities, kind of seeing what you've done, how you stood out. So I'm excited to jump into that, but hey, don't let me steal the spotlight. You're the star of the show. What are you all about? What has you so excited these days?
Yeah. So you kind of led into what I've become over the years. We were talking before the show. This is not my plan 20 years ago. Like getting out, fresh out of college 20 years ago, if you asked me, what do you want to do with your life? Like, this is not the answer I would have come up with. Right, where I am today was absolutely not the answer I would have come up with. I think we talked about, I wanted to make computer games until you figure out that making computer games is a lot less fun than actually playing them is. So like my life did take a totally different direction. So for the last 20 years, I've been building a number of businesses, like you mentioned, 20 profitable businesses. I've sold 4 of them in that time. And accidentally, I fell into online education. Accidentally being I married a teacher. So that kind of got me into this space. Our first business was we launched a brick and mortar chain of language schools in Mexico, like language school where people would actually come and study with us in Mexico, and we put them in Mexican families and we teach them Spanish. From that, my wife actually had the idea, like, hey, we should offer this on this new technology called Skype, which just closed, I think, like 3 months ago, right? But back then in like 2007, it was like this new technology. So we became one of the first, if not the first in the world, to start offering Spanish lessons via Skype. And organically over time, it grew very quickly, and we became one of the largest online language schools in the world. And when I sold it, it was one of the top 5 and the only one with no VC backing. So everybody else had like tens of millions of dollars of venture capital, and we were the only like bootstrap family owned one in the top 5 in the world. So like that's kind of my history into education. Since then, I've built multiple multi-7-figure online education companies. And as I was kind of coming into my own recently, this is something I've been working on the last few months. What is it exactly that you're doing? And people would come up to me, it's like, oh, you help coaches. I'm like, no, that's not quite right. Oh, you do online courses? I'm like, no, I don't really record videos. And, that's not it either. And it actually took a lot of self-exploration, like over about a course of 6 months or a year to figure it out. And then somebody said it. I was speaking at a conference and they came up to you. It's like, yeah, you're that guy who builds online schools. And it's one of those like, clouds part. And you're like, oh, yes, that's what I do. So I build online schools. I probably have more experience in this than most people in the world. I didn't know it was called that until maybe 3 or 4 months ago. Like, I just recently started saying that. But what is the difference between an online school and courses or coaching businesses? And this ties back to your question about, when you have the courses, get excited about it. Coursing is 100% digital. You make a video, you might have a community there where you have some interaction. That's generally what it is. And it was sold during the golden age of this, like the passive income, the way to make passive income, right? You make a course, you sell it, infinite money, 99% profit, 97% profit margin after Stripe takes their 3% or PayPal takes their 3% out of it, and you don't have to do anything. Wonderful. And it was actually true for a while. There's some books sitting on my bookshelf about, how to do that kind of thing. But with AI, that's becoming commoditized. Like, if all you're doing is selling knowledge, sorry, your AI probably knows better than you, and I'm guessing within 6 to 12 months will make better videos than you about teaching almost anything, right? Like, you can say, make me a video course on teaching Spanish, and it'll make a beautiful woman who speaks perfect Spanish, who does a perfectly optimized course on how to teach you Spanish. And somebody's going to throw it up in a cheaper part of the world, like in India or the Philippines, for $5, and then it's a race to the bottom, right? Then somebody's going to sell for 4, then 3, then 2, until it's totally commoditized.
Till they pay you to watch it.
Exactly. And then there's going to be ads. Like, that's it. Like, that's what you're racing for if you're in the course business. So the course business, I think, like you said, Axel is hanging over their heads. So there's still a few people selling it, trying to get you into it. It's very hard. The next side is coaching. Now, I actually think that's pretty safe from AI, because it's not so much about a knowledge that you buy in coaching, it's connection, right? Robert, if I pay for coaching from you, I expect you, right? Like, yes, I can probably ask ChatGPT the same questions, but I'm asking for your insight, your experience, your personal touch is what I'm paying for. Great. People can charge a lot per hour. Problem is, it's not really scalable. You only have 8 hours a day of work, or 14 if you're crazy like me and work a lot. But that's it. At some point, you hit a limit. You cannot scale your business past a certain point because people start paying for you. So what's the answer? And that's where online schools come in, right? Because with online schools, it's like a university. You're going there not only for the human connection, but also for the knowledge. And of course, I use AI. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying anti-AI, anti-digital. It's a hybrid between the two. So the way we teach it in the productized education system is the actual transfer of knowledge is digital. So you can kind of watch these videos or whatever the medium podcast, if you want to do it that way, on your own time. But you do meet with a teacher, a coach, a mentor while you're doing it, either in one-on-one or in accountability, just like you would at a university. You have homework, you have all that kind of stuff. That keeps you on course. We know that with digital courses, 20% of the people finish them, if you're lucky, right? So very low success rate on digital courses. Again, coaching is the opposite. Really high success rate. If somebody's waiting for you, like every Tuesday at 9:00, and you commit to that person who you respect, and you're probably paying a good amount of money to get something done by then, good, you're going to get it done. And this online school system allows you to scale that, because it becomes more about the knowledge and the connections, but not to a specific person, but to the whole framework behind it. And that's what universities do. It's what high schools do. We're just taking it online, adding it to the new world. And I think that's where the future is. The way to beat AI is not to get better at AI. It's to get better at being human and building connections with people. That's how you're going to beat AI. And use AI. Great tool. Like, knock yourself out. But that's kind of what I'm, quote unquote, preaching these days. And it's worked really well for me. As I said, I've built multiple multi-7-figure businesses with this model, where you actually teach other people to teach your knowledge and transfer it. The marketing makes sense. People want connection now more than ever. Like in history, there's this loneliness epidemic that people are talking about. We can help solve that. And we can also help improve people's lives, because that's really what teaching and education should be about, right?
Yes, very nice. So it's like the scary AI tool that's infected everything, and it says, well, what will it replace? And you're like, well, maybe it will kind of force us to do what we should have been doing all along, or kind of get back to those fundamentals there. And it's like, you're so right that, you can ask ChatGPT any question, but you can also say, like, give me a 90-day plan, or break this down. And it's like, we're just a couple of steps away from just, being replaced with these courses. And you're like, okay, well, school is what we want instead. And I'm making a mental note about, like, a lot of what you do with, like, the publicity, especially, it's delayed gratification, isn't it? You say, well, I'm going out there, I'm appearing on podcasts, I'm doing the speaking gigs, doing the content. What's it all for? Well, it's for when the lightning strikes and someone comes to you and said, hey, you're the online school. And you're like, you got the feedback reflection, and someone who just kind of innocently learned from you, and they just kind of said some phrase, and they didn't even realize how helpful, and it changed your whole life, right? Changed your whole trajectory. Right. And so, like, an innocent bystander saying something, and you're like, oh my gosh, there we go. Someone took in what I said, and that's kind of the way that they simplified it, and boom, that's my brand moving forward. And so you say that we want to create a school. But even that sounds a little overwhelming, right? Because I'm thinking like I have to like dump my knowledge and like reconfigure it and like teach others. And so when you say, all right, the answer isn't, it almost sounds like a chat GPT phrase, right? They say it's not X, it's Y. So it's not courses, it's schools. So like, how do we even transform in that way? How do we take what we have and say, well, it's not just a coach, I'm not just one-on-one, I'm a school. Like, what's that kind of expansion like?
Yeah, so the school, I have a model for it. If you guys go to Productized Education for you can download it. It's like, so it's a spiral where you go out. You're right. The way that it works is there's, in the model, there is the growth, fulfillment, and operations side of a business. Generally speaking, when you're in the first level of the spiral, you're a one-person founder, you're everything. That's actually where most coaches start and most coaches end, right? They do the marketing, they do the coaching, and they do the operations, right? Like whatever that is, the emails, sending out the invoices, all the kind of stuff. Maybe they have a CRM if they're very sophisticated on like the first level of the stuff. Pretty soon you get to a point, and it's usually because the marketing's working, where the fulfillment you can no longer do, right? So that's the point. You need to bring in another teacher and you need to train them. And there's systems for doing that. There's, if you've never done it before, like I wouldn't have known 20 years ago. I never got trained on how to, you mentioned it. It sounds boring. Create a curriculum, lesson plans, all the stuff that teachers know how to do. You need to be able to do, and you pass that. Now the knowledge is not only you can actually replicate not only the knowledge, but the transference of knowledge and the connection between the people. We also have something called the CAC factor, which is the clarity, accountability, and connection. That's what each one of the teachers should have. That's what each school should have. Once you've grown the fulfillment out, you have to improve the operations so that you can run that. Then you have to go and have more growth because now you have to fill up that new teacher you just hired so you can make money. And then this is a spiral that just keeps going out, round and round. Once you filled up that teacher, you have to hire another teacher, which means you have to improve operations because now you're running 2 people instead of 1, which is not the same thing. And then you have to go back and now fill that other teacher up. And that's the spiral of growing the school. The reason I mention it that way is to not intimidate people. Everybody says school and they see the final product and it's like, uh-oh, I need to have this. Like, that's what you're working towards. But don't worry about it. Like, 1, there are systems to get there. And 2, you're not getting there. That's not what day 1 should look like. Day 1 is you. Unless you happen to have $10 million in the bank account, in which case, yeah, we can probably skip you ahead a few steps. But most of the people that I've worked with, so generally I coach businesses that are already kind of online schools that are kind of at least 500,000 to $1 million because my expertise is kind of scaling them up to the 8 figures. But we do teach people to get it to that level. So my whole thing at the Productized Education is like, oh, we have ways to teach you. We have teachers, we all that. You can do that. You want to work with me? Once you get to that level, that's when you start working with me. And that's what you want in a school. So Robert, like a lot of the stuff that you can teach other people to teach. And then once people show their commitment, show their knowledge, show their connection to your methodology, then they're like, okay, Robert, like now you're like, I'd like to work with you. You, Robert, right? And choose the people you work with instead of, well, I got to take everybody. And you said you want courses. They're always, these students that for some reason you don't resonate with and they cause, 80-20, 20% of the students cause 80% of the problems. You can filter all of those out. So the only people I work with are the people I want to work with and that have already shown that they're willing to put in the work.
Very cool. And man, I mean, so it seems like at least the undercurrent from learning from you here is there is like belief seems to be a big thing, right? Like the whole reason why someone does a coach instead of just the book learn is it's easy to, if you haven't done something, it's easy to not believe in yourself, right? But if you have someone kind of pulling you along and checking in and checking up on you, and then there's also just like we've been saying, there's, well, where I'm at now, which is no school setup versus I see what's possible and I'm just like completely overwhelmed. And then at least hearing from you, it kind of goes back to the programming and software ideas, right? Like there's all kinds of, history is filled with stories of people that just like dumped tons of money, dumped tons of resource into something. And it was just a total piece of crap software, right? And it didn't work versus something more scrappy where you say, hey, well, I've got the minimum viable product here. And then I've got the little bit of operations fulfillment. And then I kind of just like improve over time. And as I can show that it works and like get the bugs out, then I can just slowly build as my business grows, as people use it, as people teach it. And it kind of, the spiral seems like a better way of going about it. And especially there's something to the idea of like you overcome the doubt and the overwhelm and the negativity with these fun visuals like the spiral. And also, we're here on a podcast. Podcasts are all about stories, right? And we can break through some of those limiting beliefs there too. And I can only imagine the niches or the problems you solved. You say that you were doing the learning Spanish language, but what do you have to share with us story-wise as far as like someone like building out this spiral in the way you mentioned?
Yeah, so I've worked with a lot of people, and the interesting thing is everybody's like, what do I have to teach? First off, unless put some caveats. If you're 5 years old, and I have a 5-year-old son right now, it's like, yes, you probably have nothing to teach. Let's be honest. So like if you're a 5-year-old listening to this podcast, get some life experience first. But the amazing thing is most of us don't realize how much our knowledge is worth because we live in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a programmer like us talking about, you don't really, it's like, yeah, I can code something. I can put up a website, like no big deal, right? Anybody can do that. Nah, they really can't, right? If you've been working 5-10 years in almost any profession, working for somebody else, working for yourself, you probably have more knowledge than you think you do. You just take it for granted. Because you go to the same office full of people who probably have that same knowledge every day, and you just assume that's the rest of the world. They don't. So what I actually first tell people to do is go back 10 years and ask yourself, if I went back in time 10 years and I talked to my, self from 10 years ago, and I taught them everything I knew now, could they get to where I am today faster? And invariably, the answer is yes, right? Like if you went back in time and, taught better programming to your 21-year-old self, or how to do accounting, or how to manage people, or whatever it is that you do, how to paint, how to do, drive a bulldozer, it doesn't really matter. They would probably get better at it faster than you did because you had to learn trial and error because there was no real good person teaching you. There was no mentor, there was no advisor, there was no teacher. That's how we start building out the courses. So the different curriculum, and you can start adding more onto it later as your school expands, because like any school, you could have multiple courses in the future. So some of the most successful people I've worked with, some of which are now my partners, as I said, once they get up to a certain level and they want to coach with me, I actually take equity in the companies. And if I can, the general thing is if I double your size, I get a little bit. And if I double your size again, I get a little bit. If I double your size again, I get a little bit, right? Never majority. And then after 3 years, you can buy me out. But at that point, I've quadrupled, quintupled the size of your business, and you're probably not complaining, right? You're like, hey, I had a 500,000, I have a 10 million. Oh no, I gave up 20%, but now you have an $8 million, even your share is now worth $8 million compared to 500,000, which it was before. Like nobody's complained yet, right? Some of the most success I've had is I've worked with clients ranging from the safety and security space. We got that up to a few $1 million, where you get to get OSHA certification to drive bulldozers and get crane operators and all that kind of stuff. Not a space I knew anything about, but I'm like, wow, there's actually quite a bit of demand. So we built something up in that space. The one I'm working on the most right now is we're in the college prep space. So we help high school kids get into top universities. We're having a lot of success in that space right now. Some of the other clients that I've had success with were career transformation coach. We got him up to about 7 figures as well. So he's got a school and he's got about 7-8 people right now. Fitness. They're based out of Hong Kong. American guy, but he's living in Hong Kong and he speaks Chinese. Or Cantonese, I guess. And they're like the biggest in their region as well. So we have a lot of success stories with people who get out there. Like it's a proven system. But I'm going to caveat that. When people say proven system, they're like, people assume it means 100% success rate. Oh, it absolutely has a 100% success rate if you do it enough. Like your first idea may not work. Your second idea might not work. Your third idea, but maybe your fourth will. So statistically, when I try businesses, I have about a 1 in 3 hit rate. Which for somebody who's not been an entrepreneur, they're like, oh my goodness, that's awful. I'm like, no, that's actually pretty decent.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, usually it's like 1 out of 10, right? But still not a guarantee. That means you still have to try 3 times. So when I say it's guaranteed to work, it means guaranteed to work if you try it enough times.
Yeah.
You just have to go after something that you want to do. And that's what our system does. That's what causes the success in our system. But yeah, there's some people who try it once, doesn't work, and then they leave our thing and then say they quote unquote failed. But to me, failed is they gave up. Failed is not when something doesn't work. Failed is when you fall down and don't get back up again. And those people, yes, did fail.
Very motivating. Stay in the game. And there's just like, there's so much like human psychology that it comes, right? When you're building a business or you're teaching something, a lot of the buried treasure or trash comes out, doesn't it? Like all these things that you've been kind of keeping under there. It's easy enough to do your 9 to 5, clock in, clock out, do the day-to-day, deal with the family stuff. But then when it comes time to like think on a deeper level, then you're like self-expressing, and the self-doubt for sure comes out with all of us, right? And it's a matter of how you deal with it. And like you and I see so much of just the well, I knew it wouldn't work, right? And I've been proven right. The very first roadblock, cool. See, I knew that Ray was a scammer. I knew he didn't know what he was talking about. It's like, no, you gave up at the very first sign of trouble because you wanted to be right. And so it's important to follow instructions, follow a proven system, improvise, and keep trying and stay in the game, and know that, man, if you do better than 1 out of 10, you're doing great. So it's a for sure a different entrepreneurial mindset. Things aren't just handed to you. And speaking of that, like, where do people fail sometimes? I know that there's the giving up too soon, but as far as like the implementing and the figuring all this out, do you see like there's like a gap or just a recurring common problem with getting this set up?
Oh, absolutely. So there's actually a reason why I work with businesses at the 500,000 to 1.5 million. The exact range varies depending on the kind of business, right? It's also how profitable you are. You can be $1 million business and be losing money. So like at that point, like it doesn't matter that you're $1 million business. You need resources to grow. So most businesses, once they've gotten over that initial hurdle, which is like, let's just get started, find product market fit, right? At least, can I find a way to get clients, and will they pay me the money I want to pay profitably, right? That's where most people get caught up in the first part. Like, it's, I need to make some sales, and I need to do consistent sales once I've reached past friends and family, right? Friends and family, they bought my product, I'm great. No, you're not. You got to figure out a way to reach people past that, right? Let's say you've made it over that. Most people stagnate around the 500,000 or 1.5 million range. And the reason for that is easy and boring, and nobody bothers to do it, because what got you there is hustle. What gets you past there is systems and a process. That's the only way you're scaling past it. And systems and a process involves two things. I mean, there's the systems and processes, people understand it, so that there's like, you put something in at the top end. That's why I call it productized education, right? So you put something at the top end and the same result comes out the other end. But the second thing is you need people to run it. So people get stuck because at that size, I would bet you pretty good money they are either a solopreneur or a solopreneur with some VAs in the Philippines or somewhere else in the world where they're cheap. That is probably what their business looks like. And I work them through that, and I help them like, okay, let's get some people actually know what they're doing. You can even get them fractional. You don't have to pay for a full-time CFO or something like that. Just get somebody to go and look at your finances and do some forecasting. Let's figure out what you need to do. Let's do that. I know it sounds boring, but trust me, I mean, this is how you grow a business. Let's go and take your systems and optimize those. Let's take your profit margin up from 7% to 15%. Now you have money to play with. Let's replace that VA who's mediocre that you're paying $800 a month with somebody who's paying $3,000 a month. That's 10 times as good. And let's get some of that stuff off the plate where you think you're the only person in the world who can do it. You're not. There are tons of other people in the world who can do it just as well as you can.
Very nice. So we need to grow up, basically, right? And it's like, it's so relatable, this idea of you get to the point where the business, it becomes too easy, it becomes boring, similar to how people say, oh, well, I have all these skills, who would want it? It's boring to me, but not boring to others. And it's like, yeah, even all the time I'm thinking like, man, I'm like making the proposal, I'm following them up, I'm doing the meetings, I'm making a web page, I'm sending up an order button, doing all these boring tasks, but then they end up making money. And it's like, it's a necessary component. And so what you're saying is that if you stagnate or getting to that mid-range, the 500,000 to 1.5 million stalling out, the answer is the people, right? We need to find the people to be our students and get help from our training, but also the people to run the business. And it's like kind of both doubling down, quadrupling down on the boring and also on the scariness, right? Because now you're changing what kind of was working and giving up your profits and kind of getting into this unknown territory. And that's why the people need you, in the same way that when they go and they need a coach and they need a school, it's to get some new achievements that they wouldn't be able to get on their own. And the same way, if they say, well, I like the possibility here of making money from my knowledge and outrunning the AI, and also helping people that maybe just a Kindle book and YouTube video isn't quite getting them there, and building not just a course, a school. That's some exciting on fire stuff. And so in these last few minutes of our conversation here, Mr. Ray, I want to make sure that we cover what's important to you. So what's the missing question here? What should I be asking you in this conversation? I just don't know what to ask you.
Yeah. So that's actually a hard question. You even told me it was coming. The question I come up with is, should everybody be an entrepreneur? Specifically, in my case, should everybody launch an online school? But I'm going to make it a little bit more general. Should everybody be an entrepreneur? And my answer is absolutely no. I think 99% of the people on this planet have no business being an entrepreneur. I have people in my family. I think I'm the only entrepreneur in my family, right? I come from a family of academics, professors, all the rest, but like I'm the only entrepreneur in my family. I think most people would be miserable in this because at least with a 9-to-5 job, like you said, Robert, there's a perception of stability. I say perception because yes, you can be fired at any time, all the rest of it. This perception of stability. That illusion is totally shattered when you're an entrepreneur because there is no stability, right? Like you could be doing great yesterday and then today you wake up and there's like so many fires you don't even know what to start, which one you want to put out. For the right kind of person though, they can't imagine living any other way. Like I tell people, I wake up at night at 2:00, my wife, with a cold sweat, and my wife turns to me and she's like, "What happened? I had a nightmare. I had a job." Like that is my nightmare. It's like I had a 9-to-5 and I was sitting at a cube, which I did before right after college, right? Like that is my worst. That is my nightmare. For some people, that's happiness, that's stability. They know they leave at 5, they don't think about work. There is no work-life balance when you're an entrepreneur, not in the sense that like most people talk about it. I've been happily married for 20 years. I have a child. I work out. I teach martial arts. I mean, I do other things too, but if you ask me, what time do you stop thinking about work? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I wake up at 2:00 in the morning. Never. If you're looking for that, don't be an entrepreneur. There is no turn off. But there's also never a time I stop thinking about my family. There's also never enough time I stop thinking about other things either. So like it is, what is it? Like your work is not part of your life? Like I can't imagine that being a thing, right? Like work is part of my life. Life is part of my work. It is who I am. So that's the question. Should everybody be an entrepreneur? And my answer is no.
Very good. It's about what's important to you, isn't it? And about what your fit is and not living someone else's life. And man, like if you've ever like kind of peeked over and seen someone else scroll their own Facebook, it's so boring. You can't even watch it for like 10 seconds, but then you watch your own social media and they've algorithmized it for it to be like crack to you. And so everyone's life is different, and some people love that idea of the, like you said, perceived stability, security, 9-to-5. But hey, if this entrepreneurial idea excites you, well, there for sure is like the imagined, idealized version versus the reality. So you do have to experience it, right? Like in actual school, they do have you take a chemistry class, take a PE class, that way you can actually try these things out for yourself. So if you want to do this entrepreneurial adventure, you do need to try it out. But there's all this, it's not quite bait and switch, but it's way harder than it looks so that you think. And 1 out of 10 of these ventures will succeed. But that means you have to keep going and embrace the crazy along with the rest of us, and especially Mr. Ray Blakney at productizededucation.com. So if someone was just reignited, reinvigorated, re-excited about these possibilities and what you've laid out for us, what's the next step here? How can they find out more about building what you're talking about?
Absolutely. So they can go to Productized Education. As I said, we have a lot of free resources there that they can download and they can kind of take a look and see if this is the direction that they want to go in. We run once a quarter, we run a cohort. And this is the first cohort is we help you come up with the idea and we help you launch your first product and we help you sell it. So our goal by the end of the first cohort is that you make back what you paid us for the course. And it's not super cheap, but like, we're also teaching people not to sell things for $9. Like your knowledge is worth way more than that. There's actually a way you calculate how much your knowledge is worth, which will teach you in that. Like, how much more would you have made if you had chopped 5 years off of your journey to get to your current income? It's usually a lot bigger number than people. So charge somebody 1% of that. So like the basic idea is if you would have made $1 million more, charge $10,000. Because if somebody believes you're going to make $1 million more faster and you have a track record to prove it, 10,000 is not an unreasonable thing to ask, because they'll make the money back like this. And it's not something you should feel guilty asking for, because you're also changing their life. Like, for 10K. If somebody told me when I was 21, give me 10K and I believe them, like Richard Branson came up to me and said, give me 10K and I'll help you make $10 million. I'd be like, I would figure out how to get that on. I did not have $10,000, but like I'd figure out how to get
Find
loans
a
and
way.
credit cards to actually make that payment, right? So
Yeah.
that's what we do in the first course. We help you design it. We help you kind of build the MVP, and we help you sell it. And if you can't sell it, you get free for the next two cohorts. Because remember, 1 out of 3 is our hit rate. And you just do it again and again and again, because it only takes one hit to change your life. So like your baseball analogy, you get 3 strikes, but it's in our game, instead of 3 strikes and you're out, 3 strikes and you hit 3 swings and you get a home run.
Right. Yeah. And
That
in baseball, when they have the statistics, it's like, man, if you're batting 300, you're like at the top of the heap.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And that's what we're trying to teach you. Like getting it wrong. I'll use an analogy. I teach Japanese fencing, right? So kendo. I learn much more when I lose a match than I do when I win a match. When you win a match, I'm sometimes like, I don't even know what I did. I got one. Okay, good. Whatever. If I get my butt kicked, I'm like, oh, I was too slow. I didn't react to this. My footwork was off. Like, that's when you really grow and that's when you learn. So learn, again, failure is not when something doesn't work. Failure is when you stop trying.
I love it. Learning is failure. Failure is learning. And if you've failed, that just means you have the data, the feedback. You know what doesn't work, and now you can reconfigure. And man, sometimes you do things and they work, and then life shifts under your feet. And so if you've been frustrated or you just like this idea of taking your existing knowledge and your skills and packing it into a scalable education solution for a narrowly defined target student to generate life-changing results and grow it to 7 figures plus. This next step is to go to productizededucation.com and check out this next cohort that's coming up. There's a niche finder solution that you can take right now and make sure that what you want to teach can actually make you money before you even start. That way you're not using all this energy going down this path and saying, oh my gosh, I thought that people would pay me $3,000 to learn how to knit their own cable knit sweaters. Well, hey, it has to actually have that Richard Branson effect that you're talking about, where someone wants this result, they're willing to pay money, because without the money they're paying, maybe they're going to spend all this time and might not even get to that end goal. And money's not the most important thing, right? It's what you trade with the money. Just think about, I can only imagine the various cool swords you bought with your money, Mr. Ray. It's like the money, you can't take it with you, and people want to trade their money to learn a language, to figure out that forklift training, to figure out HVAC repair. And so if you want to get to this next step, this next level, well, then you need to figure out how to get this productized education system to work for you, whether you're just starting your online education business or you've already grown to 7 figures. They can help you scale to that next level. That's productizededucation.com. Go ahead, do it right now and find out what's possible. And before I let you go, Mr. Ray, it's time for the scary part of the show where I try to stump you. I try to put you on the spot, where I ask about a fun quote or lesson that has served you. So what comes to mind as far as a fun quote or lesson?
So I will tell you the quote first and then the story behind it. So I actually have a piece of artwork to the right that was actually I commissioned based on this quote. It's, if they were to write a book about your life, would anybody want to read it? That's the quote that changed my life. And it's actually from a TV commercial for the US.
From the Army.
Yeah,
I
you
remember
remember that commercial. Exactly. But
when I
most
was in
people
high
don't.
school, yeah. Or I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
they said, like, if they made a movie out of your life, would anyone want to watch it? Or like, yeah, same idea, right? Like if it was publicized, would it be interesting?
So at the time, I had just graduated from college, and I was sitting at home in my condo in downtown Cleveland, Ohio, computer engineering, working for a Fortune 500 company, where I'd go every day and sit in a cube and I'd write code. And then I'd come home and sit in my condo, which was the American dream. I had a flat screen TV, and I'm a 21-year-old, 22-year-old with a condo downtown. And then I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, what's next? Well, a bigger condo with a bigger flat screen TV and maybe a bigger cubicle at work, right? And so what instigated this was I was at work that morning, and they invited me in I was a team leader, the software team at the time, to celebrate the anniversary of another software team lead in my company. And he was what I thought was really, really old, like in his 50s, right? Like at the time. And I was like, I walked in there, and we had one of those like cheese platters with grapes on it that all those corporates do, corporate places give you on one of those like faux wooden tables. And I go and get my plastic plate and I put all that stuff on there and I'm eating. And then the CEO of this Fortune 500 company comes in, gives the guy a plaque and a watch and says, "Thank you for 30 years of dedicated service to our company." And I remember looking at it and like, I don't want that watch and I don't want that plaque, because he's come here for 30 years and sat in the same cube. I mean, I'm sure he's moved around the company, but he's essentially sat in a cube in front of a computer for 30 years. And then I went home that night and I saw that commercial, which I'd probably seen before, but my mind was in the right frame to process the message. And I was sitting there and they, if they were to write a book about your life, would anybody want to read it? Comes up and I'm sitting there. I'm like, no, I wouldn't read my own book. If I do this for the next 30 years, I will not write my own book. Within 3 months, I sold all my goods, quit my job, and joined the Peace Corps. And that's how I ended up in Mexico, where I met my wife and became an entrepreneur.
Well, dang. Sometimes it just takes a moment like that, right? You see something, you say, and it's just kind of everyday, ordinary, and you say, oh my gosh, this woke me up. I don't want that. And then you connect it with the red car syndrome, the reticular activation system. You say, I've seen this commercial so many times, but you make the connection, spurs you into action. Next thing you know, you're on that next chapter of your life. And so perhaps you as a podcast watcher, listener, this is it, right? You've been thinking about this online course thing, this entrepreneurship thing, and you say, oh my gosh, Ray has this figured out. It's not about a course, it's about creating a school. And just like the same in education, you do your homework, you take a test, there's all these ways to go wrong, but and a few finite paths to success. And so if you've just been rolling the dice and hoping it works, I mean, imagine if you said, I want to be a brain surgeon, but I won't take classes. I'll just kind of dabble and I'll watch a few YouTube videos here and there. Do you think you'd actually get to being a brain surgeon? No, you just learn a few scattered facts and figures. So it's time to take it seriously now. And that means going to Productized Education. Go there, check it out, download the free Niche Finder course. Since 2008, they've worked with over 3,100 educators from around the world to help them make millions of dollars online. And you have everything you need, and you know how to do things, and you can teach others. So now it's time to kind of shape it, systematize it. It's the productized education system. You can start making money with what you know in as little as 60 days. So go ahead, do it right now. Productizededucation.com. And thanks so much, Mr. Ray, for entertaining us, educating us, doing everything that a teacher and a school should be doing, right? Seeing it, hitting it from multiple angles. I'm glad you were here, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Robert.